Thank you so much. I would like to comment a bit on the importance of these topics, especially memory, memorials, and educating history. I do believe that it is related to transitional justice. What do we understand by transitional justice? It is a special process that happens after war crimes, crimes against humanity, civil wars, or armed conflicts have happened in territories or nations in order to build peace, for conflicts to finally end, to close the wounds, for there to be reconciliation in a territory. It's important for transitional justice to happen, and it's a process. Transitional justice has 4 pillars. One of them is truth, which is important to seek the truth. What has happened? Who has died? Who has been murdered? By who? Was the government involved? What did the government do? Or maybe they had the information, they received the intel, but they decided to not do anything. The other pillar is justice. It's important for the people who committed these crimes, these acts of violence, to answer. They have criminal responsibility, political responsibility, administrative responsibility. It's important to get convictions for the people who have done these crimes. The third pillar is reparations. And I do believe in the reparations pillar, besides the economic reparations to the families of the victims, memorials are very important. To tell the stories of the victims, of the people who have been murdered by tyrants, dictators, who have suffered the effects of armed conflicts, civil wars, crimes against humanity. And the fourth pillar, I believe, is also extremely related to what has been discussed today, which is the pillar of measures in order to avoid that things repeat themselves. Educating people, especially young people, about history, our dark history, what has happened, is extremely important, because if not, if we don't raise awareness of our dark chapters of our history, then we may face the danger that things are going to repeat themselves. Besides legislative reforms that are necessary to tackle problems that have arisen, it is important to collect the findings, the truth that we have discovered, and to objectively and impartially distribute it to the people, to the citizens. That's why education in history is very important. Not to tell the tales or the stories of the winners of the conflict, but to showcase the damage that the actions of tyrants, of people that have violent ideologies, of authoritarian regimes, of radicals, have caused in humanity. It is important to showcase the scars that armed conflicts, that wars have caused in the people. We have had, like I believe all of us, education related to what has happened in the Second World War, the Nazi regime, the Holocaust. But even though we've all received that education, I believe for most of us it's very shocking how come there's been a rise in the tendency of Nazi ideologies again. There are people who identify themselves as neo-Nazis. At least that to me seems completely crazy. There are other people who deny that the Holocaust even existed. That to me seems outrageous. And I believe that shows that we as humanity, we have not done enough to spread the word, to educate our children, to educate youth about the impact that the Nazi regime did, the lives that they destroyed, the hate that they spread. It is important to reject these actions, but to showcase the wounds and the damage. Currently, we have a war that Russia has started against Ukraine. Eventually, that war is going to end, and it's going to be very important for us to educate people about what the Russians did, especially, the Russian government, the Russian politicians, to showcase the story of the victims. Because we need to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself. We have to learn from our mistakes, because I believe we have not done enough to spread the word around what the Nazi regime did. because a lot of people, some people around the world, support these crazy ideas. They deny that the Holocaust even happened. Before asking a question to our speakers, I would like to elevate a thought that is very important. Sadly, not a lot of young people are interested in history. They should be, because it's important to know what has happened around the world in order to learn from our mistakes and to avoid repeating them. That's why I do believe that the arts are very important, are an important tool to reach out the younger generations. We could make movies about armed conflicts, about the damages of war, of human rights violations, to tell the stories of the victims. We could make movies, we could write songs. I believe governments should align themselves with artists, because art is a great way of spreading across a message, of telling stories in a multimedia kind of way. But I also believe it's important to use the tools that we have. A lot of young people we are always with our phones, looking at social media, so we could also use those tools to reach out other young people that they might not be very interested in history, or that they may not have been paying attention to their teachers in university or in school. We can use the tools of social media to raise awareness, to tell the history, because we need to show the damage that has happened to avoid history to repeat itself. We have to learn from our mistakes. So that's the question that I want to elevate to our speakers. Basing ourselves in the experience of spreading the story of the damages, the human rights violations, the crimes that the Nazi regime did, and how we have failed because these radical ideologies are still around and ongoing, and some people deny the Holocaust. What do you think we can learn from this experience in order to avoid it in future measures to avoid history to repeat itself in the cases of Ukraine and Russia, Israel, Palestine, because these conflicts eventually are going to end, and we need to make sure we stop the bloodshed, that the damages, the human rights violations don't happen again. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so I will ask our